Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. This is our Anticrime VIP press conference. So just want to kick things off. Mayor Tim Keller is going to start us off, and feel free, Mayor.
All right, thanks so much, Rebecca. And we are here today to give an update on violent crime in the city of Albuquerque. And we know this has been one of the biggest challenges we've had that's faced our community and our department and this administration. It's something that has crept up over the last decade. So it was a very slow train, but obviously it's been peaking going back to about 4 years ago, and then 3 years ago, and then again last year. So we wanted to provide an update on some aspects of violent crime, a decades long problem in our city. And this year, I think obviously many things are sort of colored by the COVID pandemic. And so I want to let folks know we want to begin with a little bit of a city versus city comparison, because we obviously want violent crime to go down in our city, but I think it's also important to understand about what's happening with crime in other cities and around the country. And this is one area where, fortunately, we're actually in a very different place than folks might think. So if I could bring up that PowerPoint now, or that chart, um, basically in almost every major city in America, we've seen huge spikes in violent crime. And this is something that even came out in this debate over the summer when, the president was here and the attorney general, and Albuquerque was being lumped into categories of other cities that are seeing spikes in violent crime. And now we've gone through the statistics and verified the analysis and so forth. And as we said back then, that is just not the case in Albuquerque. We know we have our problems. We know violent crime is far too high, but we are in a much better place than some other cities around our country. And this graph shows this. Out of 67 of the largest cities in America, we are one of just 2 cities that have actually seen violent crime go down in every category and flat in homicide. So you can see some of these cities here on the graph up on the screen, and you see major spikes in, Austin, Denver, Nashville, Phoenix, Tulsa. And I want to highlight for folks, these percentages, they're very scary percentages. I mean, I just want to let folks know what this chart says is that Denver homicide is up over 40%. That is obviously a terrible thing, but it's a real thing. And it's something that is, again, happening in these other cities. And so when we see, even a place like Phoenix, these cities right near us, right, where we have family and friends, up 30% when it comes to homicide. It does make me especially grateful for where we're at in terms of the fact that we're just flat. Now, again, it's still too high, but on a relative basis, we feel much better about living in Albuquerque and about where our department is in terms of violent crime than in these other cities. And so when you see these statistics, it's no stretch to just say that, like in a lot of ways during the pandemic, I'm grateful that we live in Albuquerque and that we're doing a better job than our peers on this. Now, we obviously have lots of work to do to make people feel safer and actually bring these rates down on a specific city basis. And so our interim chief, Medina, is going to highlight some of this work, and we've been doing a lot of different aspects of this. And we've really, in the last 2 months, ramped up over 500 arrests, 76 guns recovered, 62 stolen cars recovered. But I think the most powerful statistic is that shootings are down. And that's what Chief Medina is going to speak to. And let me mention, part of this is because our work on violence intervention. And we're going to hear from Jerry Bachicha, who's running that program for us. We're very lucky to have her, and Commander Luke Langwood, who work on this. But I do want to remind everybody that back in January, we announced this program. And we said it would take some time to start and to set up. And we did not let the pandemic get in the way. We continued to build for this, to set it up, and it really hit the ground running in September. And since then, we have seen a drop in shootings. And so the violence intervention program now up and running, and also our technology investments, which we had talked about 6 weeks ago, now up and running with ShotSpotter and so forth. And so I believe hopefully we are going to finally turn a corner on violent crime. And at a minimum, what we're seeing already is that we're not seeing the spike that other cities are. So we're in this together. We know we've got to keep Albuquerque safe. It's our number one priority other than the pandemic. and we also, of course, are committed to constitutional policing. So everything we're doing is under that auspice. And you'll see the violence intervention program is an amazing marriage between literally trying to reduce homicides and shootings, but also providing people the help they need to end that cycle of retribution. That's why that program is so powerful, and we think it's starting to have an effect. So with that, I'll hand it over to Chief Medina. Chief.
Thank you, Mayor, for those words of encouragement as we move forward in trying to deal with the violent crime problems that we sometimes see in the city of Albuquerque. And I'm going to give a little bit of an overview of our anti-crime operations. We started these anti-crime operations this fall, and we wanted to shift gears from what we had been doing the first part of the year, which was very reactive, to becoming very proactive. One of the things that I recognize in the crime that's occurring in the city is throughout the years, whether it was when I was on patrol or when I was in property crimes, it seems like every time that we arrest somebody for an in-progress crime, that individual actually had a warrant out for their arrest that we could have taken that individual into custody for. So one of the things we did is we looked and we wanted to arrest and focus on individuals with certain types of warrants during these anti-crime operations. We wanted to focus on individuals that had warrants that were no bond hold, so we know that we could keep them in jail for a longer period of time, for at least till they get before a judge. We also wanted to focus on individuals who had histories or warrants for the types of crimes that we believe were the drivers of crime and violent crime specifically within the community. So what we did is we started these anti-crime operations, and the goal, like I said, was to become and shift into being very proactive. And I think that's the key as a department. We have to be very proactive in trying to take these drivers of crime off the streets or to get them to change their behavior. And that's what I think these two programs, this and the violence interruption program, accomplish very well. Officers and detectives from multiple bureaus, this started with all of the department working together to give resources up so that we could have these teams out making these arrests. We work with our partners such as New Mexico State Police and the Office of the Superintendent of Insurance. And in the first 3 days of the operation, we had 33 arrests and we cleared 72 warrants. And the mayor gave you some of the updated numbers earlier as to how we've I think we're at about 500 arrests at this point in time from these operations. That's just one step in us being proactive. We also have to be proactive in the investigations that we're conducting and make sure that we're moving those investigations quickly into a phase of getting them forward towards prosecution. So we've also made some changes in the homicide unit by giving them some additional resources, but we've also made a commitment to work better with the district attorney's office to ensure that we're putting together the strongest cases possible. We're in constant communication and we're working to make sure that our cases are getting to good success in prosecution as they go along. We've also arrested homicide offenders throughout these operations. So we're able to arrest individuals who are drivers of crime who may be dealing narcotics all the way on through some of our homicide offenders that are coming up with warrants, or even in some cases, those that we have been looking for a period of time. Commander Luke Langwood has been very instrumental in this operation, and he's the person who's organizing and developing these operations each week. He's also involved in the violence interruption program, and I'm going to let Commander Langwood talk a little bit more on the specifics on how we're moving this forward. But I think the mayor talked about it earlier when he said, you know, we have to show some success, and it's encouraging that we're starting to see some of these trends slow. And I think the most important one is the bullet to skin, as we call bullet to skin shootings, where somebody's actually struck with the bullet. We were in the mid to low 30% increase for the year when we started these operations. And just this week, we had that down to an 18% increase for the year. So that's a shift of in double digits, somewhere around 15 to 17% reduction that we've gotten in those shootings during this past few months. And it's not just for those months, that's actually a total reduction for the year. So those early increases in the year have gone down. So I think it's very encouraging that we're starting to see this trend go down, and we look forward to our officers continuing to get the resources needed. The mayor's been very supportive in helping us rebuild the department, getting us the additional officers that we need. We've been recruiting these officers, and we continue to grow the ranks of the department. And as we grow these ranks, we want to increase the amount of our productivity by spreading our officers out to various throughout the week, so that we have the proper units working during the proper time when crime is being committed. Thank you. Luke?
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Medina and Mayor Keller. My name is Luke Langwood. I am a commander in the Investigative Bureau for APD. Just to give you a breakdown of what our anti-crime operations are. When we started these anti-crime operations back in August, I know one of the comments that came up, or one of the questions was, shouldn't APD be doing proactive operations every day? And that's a great question, because I think there is a little bit of a misconception that's out there. First off, our patrol officers, our field service officers, these men and women who take 911 calls, emergency calls, and 9 emergency calls every day, they're working with their area commanders, and they're identifying problem-oriented policing POP areas or areas that need focus and attention. So there are TAC plans and POP projects that are worked every day by our uniformed patrol officers. So technically, every day is kind of like anti-crime operations. What the anti-crime operations that we've been putting out recently, since we started this in August for the chief's direction, is every operational division within the Albuquerque Police Department is now contributing and assisting with the field officers and actually going out and hitting the streets. In the past, we've had a lot of our specialized units, their primary mission was to focus on follow-up investigations and to prepare these cases and submit those to the prosecutors to be prosecuted. Or other specialized units where, you know, there's a heavy focus on training to be mission ready, such as our tactical units or open space and traffic. So all of these divisions and these units have been directed to assist with these anti-crime operations, and they're the focus of the results that we've been putting out. So when we do put out results, I know the mayor and the chief had mentioned we've had 508 arrests since August. That's not actually the total amount of arrests that we've made as a department, because again, our field officers, they're working their TAC plans and POP projects every day. So there's even more arrests and more stolen property and firearms recovered. So I just wanted to kind of clear up that misconception that's been out there. And that's important because this is the direction of Chief Medina, that this is how we're going to operate. So I can tell you as an investigative commander, what we've done in investigations is we've shifted caseloads where teams are helping each other out to ensure that there's an equal spread of cases. So each investigative team can go out on the streets and hit the streets to do these anti-crime ops where they are looking for drivers of crime, the no bond warrants that the chief talked about. We're utilizing stolen vehicle technology, gunshot detection technology. We have real-time maps that populate with our drivers of crime offenders with the no bond warrants. So we're pushing all of this technology out to our officers and our specialized units, and they're using this while they're conducting these operations, and it's been very, very effective. So as the chief and the mayor had mentioned, we started these operations with our specialized teams back in August of 2020. And just to give you an idea, last week, we wrapped up a 4-day operation. It was our 12th anti-crime operation. We arrested a total of 58 offenders, drivers of crime, were arrested and booked into the Bernalillo County Metropolitan Detention Center. We cleared 56 felony warrants, recovered 8 stolen vehicles, and we also recovered 5 firearms. And that was just 1 week. To date, since we started this initiative, we have made a total of 508 arrests, and we've cleared 580 warrants, just from the specialized units that have been participating. So it's really important that when we look at the data and the crime statistics where we can see successes like the chief talked about, and we are seeing where the crime has been going down, and we really feel that the anti-crime operations and the violence intervention program that the department and the city has brought online, they are now starting to make a difference. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jerry Bachicha, who can really give us a good update on where we are with the violence intervention program. Thank you.
Thanks, Commander Langwood. Good afternoon, everybody. I am the manager of the Violence Intervention Program, also known for short as the VIP program. And I'd like to update you on some of the activities that we've been doing and some of the statistics that are coming out of our program. To date, the department and the VIP team has conducted 74 custom notifications, and this has been since its launch in past April. In the past April, the custom notifications are designed to intervene during the most critical times, such as someone being shot, with group members at the very highest risk for gun violence in our city. The custom notification team consists of both police and community-based services, and our team actually has a peer case manager with lived experience on it, and that's making a lot of the difference in how our program is having the kind of impact it is in our work. So out of the 74 individuals who are participating in the Violence Intervention Program, or VIP, not one has committed a firearm-involved crime again since April. This is actually a very, very good statistic, and nationally folks are starting to really take notice of our program and wanting to know how we are doing that work so well with so much impact. The custom notification team works with youth, and that would be age 17 and under, with young adults age 18 to 25, and adults 26 and over. By far, the gun violence in Albuquerque is driven by the adult population. However, you know, as we look at the statistics, we can see where some of that starts at a youth age and increases in that transition population age from youth to adult around the 18 to 25 age, and really manifests in the adult 26 and above age. And you know, as we're doing this work, we're actually having adults who indicate to us that they were thinking about retaliation prior to us stopping by. And our case manager really excels at connecting with the people that we serve because of his lived experience, and actually coaching, mentoring, and referring him to community-based services that are really willing to work long-term with not only the people that we're serving through the custom notifications, but their families, their friends, aunts, uncles, anybody who needs help in their association. This is a real good indication of how a public health strategy really works to decrease gun violence in any city or any urban area. We also have been working with teens, and you know, we've had teens that have gotten jobs through our program. We've had a teen in particular that we really are happy for, that started at CNM this past semester. So we've had a lot of success from the custom notifications that we've done. We've had 24 people reach out for services. some people don't call us for months, and then they call us from a different number and reach out for services. So it's not always immediate, but it does come down the line for a lot of the people that we touch base with. We've had over 50 service referrals made at the request of our VIP candidates, and these services include things like the top ones include shelter services, rental assistance, grief counseling, GED requests to finish or start their GEDs, job training, a lot of requests for food boxes, and also requests for emergency relocation funds. So again, just to reinforce the necessity for this new public health approach to reducing gun violence that both the city and APD has taken on has had a great impact, and we're looking forward. It's only been a few months, but we're looking forward to really building the program in the next 6 months, doubling our efforts, tripling our efforts to make sure that we're getting these services out to the communities that need them the most. Thanks.
Okay, thank you to all the panelists for sharing. We're now going to open it up to the Q&A. First, we have Elise, who has a question for Commander Langwood, so I'm going to allow her to talk right now. Okay, sorry, it's saying that I can't allow Elise to talk because of an older version of Zoom. Could you potentially send me your question through chat and I will ask that for you?
Rebecca, I can unmute, I think. Maybe, let me try.
Said it was due to an older version of Zoom.
It looks like you should be able to unmute now, Elise.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. I just wanted to go back to what you were saying about the specialized units and see if you could expand a little bit more on that. Does that mean that the anti-crime operation is just conducted by specialized units and not the field service bureaus? Is that what makes this the operation? And also, what is happening with the cases that the specialized units are investigating while they are doing the anti-crime operation instead?
Right, thank you, and that's a great question. So we have specialized units that are in uniform and that are also out of uniform. Our uniform specialized units are PRT officers, they're in each of the area commands. And then our non-uniform specialized units, such as like detectives, and that was a discussion that we had with the chief about where we have some units that for their proficiencies, they have to keep a number of training hours logged each month. So it's a matter of looking at what units that really have to focus on training and for them to balance and get a good schedule to where as long as we can have one of those teams each day of the operation going out and hitting the streets, we were finding success there. And that carried over also to the investigative units, the detectives, where we actually had to share caseloads. We may have had one teams that had very, very high caseloads and other teams that didn't have. They had a little caseload. So it's a matter of sharing case responsibilities and then for the supervisors in each division to really monitor those cases. Because at the end of the day, we're still going to, our number one priority is to advocate for victims and ensure that we get justice for them. So as far as casework, we're staying up with our casework. We're making sure that follow-up investigations are being completed. They're being reviewed and submitted to the district attorney's office for prosecution. But each team, through very good management with the supervisors and balancing each other's work and caseloads, they're able to at least get a day or two to where they can hit the streets and really focus on locating these drivers of crime. And I'm sorry, was there a second part to your question as well?
I think you answered it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Medina also mentioned he might be able to also fill you in a little bit more on this as well. If you want to go ahead, Chief.
Elise, I think one of the things that we wanted to do with this anti-crime operation And by putting it under Commander Langwood is we wanted to create that culture of also communication and coordinating with one another. The Albuquerque Police Department was, a lot of times we had units that were working independently of each other and kind of going on their own direction with their type of operations. And in doing this, we wanted everybody to be coordinated so that we could ensure that investigations were getting complete. But for example, the tactical section, they had 2 days off out of training that they would spend taking calls for service or helping an area command where they needed assistance in what the commander needed for that command. And what we're trying to do is get them all coordinated. So we're focusing on one true effort for the city, which is our violent crime problem. Our area commanders are still focusing, and we did give them the ability to change their operations internally. So like the Northwest does a lot of operations for stolen cars, but since violent crimes is our biggest topic, all these additional resources, we're coordinating them to focus on violent crime specifically.
And Chief Medina, we also have a question from Patrick Hayes. He said he has a question for Interim Chief as well.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you, Chief. I wanted to ask, the DA's office says they started using this dashboard tool to track some of the gun violence in the city. Obviously includes the county too, so everything that comes through their office, and it shows an increase in shootings and in deadly shootings. Is that the same thing that you guys are seeing on APD side?
You know, we did have, like we stated earlier, right around the August timeframe, we had a sharp increase in our shootings. We started these operations and we've lowered it down to lower number from the mid-30s, lower mid-30s to about 18% to this last week was the increase. So although we've seen a decrease for this time frame, as for the year, we have seen an increase in shootings where somebody was hit. And that's where we are seeing the positive change in the direction that we had all year on these, but we still have work to do to continue to get it so that we're at negative numbers for the year.
Do you have any plans moving forward to address those specific numbers? How would you guys plan on cutting down? The DA's office kind of talked about how you guys are, and like we've heard so far, that you guys are kind of intervening earlier and, you know, trying to, I guess, keep retaliations from happening. Can you kind of expand on that?
You know, I think there's a number of ways we could be proactive. I think the proactiveness needs to be viewed on two different areas, is stopping those retaliatory shootings like you're talking about. And that's where our violence interruption program is such a key to this, and going out, getting individuals connected with the social service providers that can assist them get out of this life of crime and shootings, which is a key to the long-term solutions that our city is seeing with violent crime, and a key to changing this culture of violence that sometimes segments of society may be engaged in just because of the lifestyle that they're involved in. But at the same time, there's also the importance of continued proactive enforcement to take other individuals who cause crime, and it's not just related to retaliation. We know that we have narcotics related homicides and shootings. We also have shootings that we've seen throughout the last couple of years in the community where it's simple property crime offenders who get confronted by a property owner, and we end up having a property owner either shot or killed. So also attacking those areas with frequent repeat offenders involved in serious property crimes and narcotics is also going to assist us. So that's why we have to hit this, and you've heard this administration say this many times, we have to hit crime from every angle, and that's from making sure these arrests are successfully being prosecuted and sent to the district attorney's office, and making sure that we have a good relationship with the DA's office so that if there's mistakes we could correct, we start to correct them, and making sure that we all have the same information, but at the same time, making sure that we're coordinating our officers to work together like we spoke earlier. So I think that it's a global approach from the police department in being able to address it in several different areas, because there is truly no one answer that's going to help us solve the violent crimes problem of Albuquerque. It's going to be very fluid, and us always looking at what the current statistics are, what the data is, what the trends are, and seeing where we could plug in our next solution to the current problem.
All right, thank you, Chief. The next question is from Ryan. He has a question for Mayor Keller.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Thanks for taking my question, Mayor Keller. I'm wondering, why do you think it's important for people to understand kind of what's going on in comparable cities? The graphic you showed at first, couldn't it be that the reason we see a decrease is because we broke a record for homicides last year? Why is it important that people sort of understand what's going on across the country?
Sure. I think it's really for two reasons. Number one is we're concerned about it going up. When we see this happening in other cities, we expect a challenge. And we're very worried, of course, with what we're seeing in other cities and the combination of COVID's pressure on our families economically, even COVID's pressure on our police department in the number of folks that we have to have out getting tested and so forth. So I think it's just important context for folks to know. But it also is a reminder that, I mean, we have to keep working hard on our own, but we've got to make sure we're doing all we can to try and not have the spike that other cities are having.
And then my follow-up is 4 months ago when we rolled out this violence intervention program, you said you think it would take 18 months to see meaningful results from this. We did a story with Jerry Bachicha, and she said that was an ambitious goal to roll this out citywide, but it sounds like we've been making some positive strides in the last 4 months. Do you still think we're on that trajectory to see meaningful impact from the violence intervention program in now the next 14 months?
You know, I hope so. I think COVID has also made that a tough goal, but you know, we have a situation of how much resources can we allocate to the program. And so I think what you see now is a very meaningful allocation, but I wish we could do a whole lot more. And so we need that another batch of 100 officers that we have in the queue that's going to come out in the summer. And also, you know, we constantly have, you know, often it's around 100 folks in our department out either waiting for a test or waiting for results and that kind of thing. So we are no doubt going to experience delays and challenges because of COVID. But I also hope after 6 months, we're really through that. I mean, with the vaccine and so forth, where we really can add more resources, which will then hopefully show an impact sooner.
Perfect. Thank you for taking my question.
Thank you, Mayor Keller. Chief Medina also wanted to talk about your first question as well. Go ahead, Chief.
You know, I think it's important also that we understand that Albuquerque is a unique city in the state of New Mexico. We are the largest metropolitan city, and it's really hard for us to compare ourselves to the rest of the state. And I think that comparing ourselves with other major cities and other major cities, what they're going through, is a true comparison for the community also to have an understanding is what is going on nationwide. I think it's really important that we recognize what law enforcement, what crime is occurring nationwide, because there is a large conversation occurring around law enforcement and violent crime throughout the nation. And I think it's also very important that we also see what's going on in other cities and how other cities are being impacted by everything that's occurring currently in society, whether it be the COVID epidemic, the movement towards transparency and police reform, and all the other issues that are occurring related to these two topics this past year.
Well then, Chief, my follow-up for you then, wouldn't the decrease that we saw here comparatively to other cities be because violent crime has been a problem here longer than those other cities, or is that a miscalculation?
I think that's a miscalculation, and we're reading a lot into those numbers because those cities are seeing increases, and some of those cities have had high numbers for a number of years and have been at record numbers, and their numbers have just increased that much higher than what they are at right now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chief. We have two more questions. The next one's from Stella Sun. This one is about arrests. I'm not sure who this one's for, but go ahead, Stella.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for the opportunity. I know you said that you guys have had over 500 arrests since around August, but how many of these actually resulted in convictions?
And I can talk to that. And that's a great question. And this is where the chief had kind of alluded to where we're really working with the prosecutors, the Burlington County District Attorney's Office. Of these 508 arrests, I don't have the exact breakdown for each of the operations, but a lot of them are for warrants, for criminal cases that are already going through the system. So where now this individual, that the fact that they've been located, they can be brought to the system to where, you know, whether they go to trial or if there's some type of plea agreement. Now that they're been located, that process can start. But of those 500, also there are new felony arrests and misdemeanor arrests that have been made. The majority felony being felony for property crimes and narcotics and for violent crimes. So those cases that have come from the anti-crime operations are officers and detectives that have completed those. They're working with the prosecutors to make sure once those timelines that the judicial system has in place, that we have everything as far as evidence and all the case preparation, that's all in place so we can have a successful prosecution. I hope that answers your question.
Can we get a breakdown on how the conviction numbers look right now? Would that be possible?
Absolutely, I can start working on that. I'll reach out to the supervisors at the DA's office and we can definitely put something together.
And then I have another question related to homicides. I believe last night, we believe that marks around 72 homicides this year. I know you mentioned you guys are, I guess, sharing the caseload amongst different divisions. Could you tell us how many homicides a detective could be working on at this time, or a team, if you could explain what they're looking at in terms of numbers?
I'm going to defer to Gilbert or to Chief. Again, my investigative division, I have the property crime units, so I don't have that information. So it would be I would be misspeaking. So let me turn that over to Chief or Gilbert.
That's a good question. And one of the things that we're working on is we are working on a presentation for next week that's going to discuss and speak to some of the changes that we've made within the homicide section, and some of the things that we're doing to help them become more efficient. And even though sometimes they may have higher caseloads per detective, some of the things that we're putting in place that is going to assist them in getting their work done and give them the support in terms of even civilians, helping them prepare and develop their cases and organize their cases. So Gilbert will be sending some information out sometime next week, and we're hoping to be able to make that announcement on those specifics at that time. And the other question in reference to convictions, it's no secret that the entire criminal justice system in the metropolitan area is struggling for resources. There's no way, and I've had this conversation with DA Torres several times, and there's no way that the DA's office could prosecute every single arrest that is executed by the Albuquerque Police Department. And the district court does not have the capacity to hear every single case that the DA's office could present to them. So it's natural that some cases are going to be dismissed. They're going to be pled. There's mistakes that are going to happen. That's why we developed the SHIELD program. But the philosophy we're developing at the police department now is we're going to put the best cases forward. We're not going to worry about prosecution. We want to increase successful prosecution, and that's why we have some quality control measures installed. But we have to have the attitude that if it takes us arresting somebody 10 times, we will arrest them 10 times. Our goal is to keep the community safe, arrest individuals as many times as we need to, and continue to build the strongest cases possible. But this concern about cases being dismissed is outside of our control. And the one thing that we do control is improving the quality of our cases, which we are working on, consistently communicating with the DA's office, the development of the SHIELD unit in 2018. And the other thing that we're concerned about is if they do get out and they're committing crime, we will arrest them and take them to jail again.
Thank you, Chief Medina. I'm going to keep you on standby because our last question is from Elise with the Journal. Go ahead, Elise.
Thank you, Chief. My question is about, so in October when there was a big spike of COVID in the jails, we reported that the jail had asked officers to use discretion about misdemeanor arrests in order to kind of help them out with that. Have any changes been made over the past 2 months in regard to who's being arrested? And if so, what are those changes?
We're still allowing our officers to use discretion. They should always use discretion. There are cases where individuals do not need to go to jail. There are low-level cases that sometimes the person can be taken to the booking window because they could produce their bond at that point and they could be released. Or there are cases that the warrant isn't, it's not a perfect time for us to execute the warrant for a variety of reasons. It may be a very low-level warrant and the individual may not be causing any community concerns at that time. And because of COVID, we'd still expect our officers to use that discretion. But one thing that did occur when we spoke to the jail, and the jail has, we communicate with one another. If there's any issues and they need us to slow down these low-level arrests, we're more than happy to work with them because this pandemic is affecting the whole community. And we want to make sure that we don't do anything that creates a worse environment. But one area where we will not budge is there's individuals that are committing violent crime or very serious property crimes. They're going to jail. They need to be incarcerated. The citizens of this community, they need to be protected from the pandemic, but they also need to be protected from these individuals who are committing crime in the community. So yes, we were willing and we are listening on these low-level crimes, but some of these serious repeat offenders are not going to get a pass because of COVID in the jail.
Thank you so much, Chief. And that will conclude our press conference. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to the panelists, and thank you for everyone for attending.
I have one more question.
I'm sorry, who's your question for?
This is for the mayor.
Mayor, do you have time for one more question?
Sure, go ahead.
Hi, Mayor. Thanks so much for giving us the opportunity. I was wondering if you could speak on the Metro 15 and what's going on with the program. It looks like from the city's website, it looks like the last update was around August, and I was wondering what's going on with that.
Sure. The Metro 15, we went through a little bit of a transition, and actually it's a great question and one that certainly is in the Chief's wheelhouse. So Chief, maybe you could speak to that in a little more detail.
You know, when we changed our administration, our commander from that section retired. We had a new commander take over that area, and they ran into some struggles because there was no handing off of the baton, so to speak. Our new commander stepped into that role. He had never dealt with Metro 15. There were some issues that were occurring in making sure that we kept the quality of the criminals to the standard that we wanted for the Metro 15 operations. He's been working through this. Just earlier this week, I had asked for an update on this, and they're hoping to have that updated and up and running again within the next week or so. So it just had to do with the change of administrations, the commander of that section retiring at that time, and us having a new commander and figuring out how to fix a small deficiency that they were finding in it to ensure that the quality of it maintained to the standard we wanted for that program.
All right, thank you so much, Chief Medina. All right, well, that will conclude our press conference. Thank you again to everyone. Bye.